majestic St Anne's Limehouse, with its famous pyramid there. And in this video I learned a little bit more about that pyramid. I know some of you are aware of the story of it. I always cling on to this vestige of mystery. St Anne's is one of the iconic buildings of not just of East London, but also of the mythologies of East London, created by our beloved Ian Sinclair. His book Lud Heat, published 50 years ago this year. And St Anne's plays a key part in Ian's psychogeography of London and the stories he spins around it. And it's by the brilliant architect Nicholas Hawksmoor. And I've just been in St Anne's for a look around. I've been shown around by people from the secular body that looks after the church, Care for St Anne's. There's an exhibition in there that is highlighting the restoration work that they're currently fundraising for to restore this incredible church, the Cathedral of the East End that it's known as. So we go inside the church, have a look around the church, go into its crypt with some fantastic things in the crypt, some amazing relics in the crypt of this church, this magnificent, magnificent church, and learn more about its past and hopefully its future if the money for its restoration can be raised. But I'll tell you one thing, I'm still awestruck by the experience of being inside that church for the last couple of hours. Come on, let's have a look inside.
They started building it around, I think 1708 was the first construction, finished in 1728, first consecrated 1730. So that's why we call our project, our restoration projects, Hawksmoor 300, because the tercentenary is due in 5 years' time in 2030, since 300 years since the first consecration of the church. That's the plan.
And what would the area have been like when they built the church?
When it was first built, it was arable land, actually. I mean, there was built-up environments along the Thames, so the sea captains and so on who are buried in the crypt and the vaults would have all probably lived close by but nearer to the river. This, we can see from early prints, was arable land. In fact, we have some prints that show cows and sheep all around the church. And it was connected to St Dunstan's in Stepney. And in fact, they had so little money at the end. Hawksmoor very typically ran out of money on all his projects. They had no money left to pay a rector. They had to share the rector with St Dunstan's. I don't know how they managed that on a Sunday, where they had to run down Salmon Lane to give a sermon here after the one he did at St Dunstan's. But I think it was 3 or 4 years before St Anne's could afford to have their own rector here. This is the vestry, which is rather lovely because most of the panelling here is original Hawksmoor. And as a vestry, it would have been responsible for the civic duties, so to do with local education and law and order in Limehouse. So they would have had a beadle. Where's my beadle stick? Here it is. So we've all seen Oliver with the beadle. And this is the beadle stick, which has St Anne's Limehouse clearly marked on it. At one point it would have had a silver top and must have looked quite intimidating if you were a young boy confronted with the beadle with his big stick. The days when the congregation might have been generous with cash, you needed a heavy-duty safe. This isn't going anywhere, it's incredibly heavy. So we have that, which is fun. And we also have, should the rector of the day forget his charging, his tariff, here are the price of weddings and funerals in shillings and pence. I think it was 12 shillings for a wedding. And if you wanted the sexton involved, it was going to cost you another 2 bob. And it's all there for him. Down the steps to the restored part of the crypt and then into the unrestored part. There is a second. I can open it somewhere. Where is it? No. Yes, I can. There you go. There's another hidden safe in the panelling. So this sort of restored part of the crypt was created in the 1970s when the precursor to Canary Wharf Limited, LDDC, I'm sure you might remember that, the London Dockland Development Corporation, Michael Heseltine, etc. We were in their regeneration area. In fact, we were the last property on the map before you get to Commercial Road, and probably the only major heritage site in that region. And they gave the money for the cleaning of the building, it was pitch black with soot from the pollution from the Commercial Road at the time. It was all cleaned. The tower was underpinned, and they cleared bodies, coffins from this area of the crypt to create this space, which is very well used by they call the parish rooms for Bible study, for my charity care for St Anne's meet here. They have a children's group on a Wednesday. You can hire it for parties and so on. So, but the church really needs more space than this, and also there's no room really to do proper community outreach, which is why we're looking to do the same, but rather better, in the other part of the crypt, which I will show you now. So the floor here is very uneven, so do watch your feet as we walk around. So one of the interesting features of this is that, as you can see, it is not a subterranean crypt. It has light, quite a lot of natural light coming in here, and that's all part of Hawksmoor's design, because he wanted this space to be used for the community of Limehouse, particularly with poor education, etc. So we like to think that our plans, which is to convert this space into rooms that we can either give to the community at certain times or rent to the community, are really returning to Hawksmoor's vision of how the church should be used. Unfortunately, what happened is that Hawksmoor's vision was corrupted by money, in a sense, because quite quickly, within about a decade of the church being consecrated, the wealthy sea captains and so on from the Thames side all came to the rector of the day and said, look, we don't want to be buried in your churchyard. We want family vaults here in the crypt, and we'll pay you for that. So money talked, in effect, and today there are about 25 of these big family vaults, each with about 5 or 6 coffins in them. And in the restoration, they all have to be cleared to make way for community usage. And that is an enormous expense in its own right. We have to jump through all sorts of hoops with the Museum of London Archaeology to record exactly who's there, and they have to be reinterred at a specialist cemetery at a cost of around £2,500 per body, and we have 100 there. So,
who are they?
Well, they would have been members of important families living in the area, mainly in the maritime trades. They could have been sea captains, they could have been in chandlery or rope making or sail making. But a lot of them are recorded here on the stone plaques above the vaults. Yeah. So I'm sure you know from your school history that most people in the Blitz in 1940 were sheltering in the tube stations. No tube stations here in this part of London in 1940. So this church, St Anne's, and down the road in Poplar, All Saints Poplar, were designated air raid shelters. So throughout the Blitz, a lot of people from the local area would have come here every evening to shelter. To give them extra protection, this is a bomb blast wall, double thickness wall, built in 1940 to give extra protection. So as we walk through, don't put your head up because it goes on for further than you might think. So the plan down here is to create, well, the wall that we walked through from the converted part will go. So this could be one enormous space, but it also could subdivide quite easily into 3 separate large meeting rooms. We have all sorts of plans for activities, as well as private hire and so on. Here at the minute you see more family vaults. On either side of this little corridor here are buried the Seaward brothers, who were great maritime engineers of their day, who were living on Newell Street, and they built the first transatlantic paddle steamers, were designed and made locally on the Isle of Dogs, and they crossed to America. So we have some well-known people here in the crypt. Yeah, so if you were sheltering here in the Blitz and you were caught short, this is our suite of toilets built specifically for the air raid shelter. No plumbing, bucket system, but a suite here of 6 toilets. And compared to the conditions in the tube station, nearest tube station would have been Aldgate, so if you chose to go up there, you would not have had this level of privacy, because each of these has its own front door. So we kind of like to think that it was actually a luxury toilet situation here at St Anne's. And people who come to visit here love these, and we intend to keep 2 of these toilets as a museum piece, along with a couple of the family vaults, and that will be our kind of Blitz history section of the crypt that we can, particularly with school children, I think would love to come and see that. So that's all part of our plan. It was very hard to find any written accounts of staying here. There was one written account in a parish magazine of the time, which was interesting, and it didn't sound too horrendous being here overnight. But last year we put on a World War II evening in the nave where a cabaret artist sang World War II songs, and her show involves dressing up as various women who perform different types of roles in the services in the Second World War. And she sang some of her own compositions and some of the famous World War II songs. But on top of that, we had a sort of oral history section where we tried to reach out to people who might have stayed here. It was very difficult. Most of, if you like, the old Cockney population of Limehouse has moved further east many, many years ago. But eventually I found a 92-year-old lady, Renee, who had sheltered here as a young child, and had some good stories to tell. And my wife made about an hour and a half tape of her stories and turned it into text for a PowerPoint presentation. She was beginning to show that to the audience, and Renee wasn't having any of that. She didn't want her stories to be retold by somebody else, so she just simply stood up in front of the whole audience and said, no, let me tell my stories. And she just started, from the hip, tell her anecdotes, and completely captivated the audience. So it really demonstrated to us the power of oral history, and it's something we want to try and do more of in the next few years, although trying to capture memories of people that age group is not easy these days, but we're going to have a go at it and try and store them as oral memoirs in our exhibition space on the gallery. That's the plan.
And this stone would have been on the floor, I guess.
Yeah. There's quite a nice one here, John, to photograph. If you can get some good light on it, which is one of the sea captains, Thomas Blythe. I don't know whether you can see that. He was a whaler and owned many whaling ships in the area. Now, of course, Limehouse being Limehouse, and one of the biggest products being brought in to the port nearby was sugar. So we still have Tate and Lyle just around the corner, as you know. And we have sugar, you have the Caribbean, you have slavery. So, you know, we do have a slavery story to tell here, and some of the people buried here in the crypt were connected to the slave trade, no doubt about it. We've done the research on it. When we did the Limehouse Lives exhibition in conjunction with Queen Mary University 2 years ago, we told that story, and the Museum of London Docklands provided for us a banner with their account of what the slavery connection was for the Port of London. So yeah, it's a story you have to tell, and it's the reality of where we sit in London here in Limehouse, that was going to be the case. So in the restoration plan, this rather ugly boiler system will go. There'll be a new heating system, which will be underfloor, complete rewiring. And in this section here, actually, there will be a lift. So a new entrance to the church, which is somewhat controversial with the diocese, as always when you puncture through the fabric of a Grade 1 listed church, that's going to be controversial, but it's recognised that from an accessibility point of view, it was necessary. So there will be outside in the churchyard a ramp bringing you from the churchyard level down to this crypt level, in straight away to a lift which can go to the nave level or even up to the gallery level. And adjacent to the lift will be a new kitchen, semi-professional, so that we can cope with venue hire, which could be a big musical event, for example, or a talk, or corporate event, or high-end wedding. Our model really for that is Christchurch Spitalfields, who have a fantastic business which helps them survive in high-end weddings, and we think we could do something similar here, but you have to have the facilities, which means heating, lighting, toilets on every floor. At the moment, we only have toilets on this floor, so if you have 300 people in the nave trying to queue to get down those narrow steps to this level, it's a nightmare. We have to have toilets on different levels, and we will have a way of getting food up to the nave level quickly through the lift from a new kitchen here. So that's the ambition. So another part of our World War II story is that as part of this being an air raid shelter, they would have had nurses on hand here, and these are the sick bays. Sick bay on this side, sick bay on here. Very small, would have probably just a couple of camp beds inside, but you could have come here to be looked after by some nurses if you'd been hit by a bit of bomb shrapnel out there somewhere in the area. You could come here and be treated. And these, or at least one of them, will stay as part of our museum piece with these original doors and a rather nice signed sick bay. Visitors who come here really enjoy seeing this material, so we don't want to lose that in the restoration.
So all this restoration is only dependent on you getting the money, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And how much do you need?
10 million, yeah. Yeah, it started at 7 million when I first got involved, when we drew up the master plan with the architects. But absolutely not through us adding extras, but simply through inflation in the construction industry, which has been rampant since COVID. The cost of the project has inflated by 3 million, from 7 to 10. So it puts a huge stress on our fundraising to achieve that kind of figure. But we've got some green shoots just between early December and now. We're starting to see some big pledges coming in. So we feel we're on our way. And I think the way these things work is people are much more likely to give if others have already given. That's the way it works. They start to feel confident in the project. So once you can start to say to people, look, we've got £1 million already, then the next pledges start to come in. So we're not pessimistic, but we're realistic to know that it's a huge challenge ahead, that's for sure. Yeah. And read the history of what happened to churches. I mean, there's so many churches in the area completely destroyed. And St Anne's got away with just a few broken windows, in spite of being right in the middle. I mean, Poplar was devastated, so was Wapping. Obviously the docks, which was central target for the Luftwaffe, and yet this enormous church building, which some people call the Cathedral of the East End because it's so vast, seemed somehow to escape a direct hit. So St George's in the east at Shadwell, another Hawksmoor church, had a direct hit on the ceiling, on the roof, and today they have built a new church within the old church, so the stone fabric of the building survived, but they built a brand new church inside the old Hawksmoor, which is an interesting approach.
In the gallery of the church, Jude Reddaway showed me around the exhibition that she's curated called The Hawksmoor 6.
This is the exhibition that you curated.
Yes, I've called it the Hawksmoor 6.
And these are the 6 churches. Just remind me what the 6 are. So we've got...
So there's St Anne's, St George in the east, and Christ Church. So those are the 3 East End churches. Then the Greenwich Church, that's St Alfred, and St Mary Woolnoth is the one in the city, and there's St George Bloomsbury. I was trying to make sure that this church, which is the last one really of the 6 Hawksmoor churches, to be seriously renovated. All the others, they still have ongoing issues, but they have been renovated. And it's because of its location, partly, maybe. It's in the not very sexy part of London with the, and obviously very poor part of London. And so it's not in Spitalfield, for instance. It's not in the city. It's not in Greenwich. It's in Limehouse. And I was trying to say, look, it's a Hawksmoor church, and the interest from the National Lottery Heritage Fund is because it's a Hawksmoor church. And I was trying to look at the stories of 3 of these churches have burnt down, including this one in 1850. 2 of them were badly damaged by the bombing in the Second World War. So that would be St Alfred in Greenwich and St George in the east. And we were lucky in a way because when this burnt down in 1850, I think it was kind of the local people, and also there was wanted it to be restored rather than replaced, in fact. And the architect, Philip Hardwick, we understand did a pretty good job.
I asked Philip why he thought this great mythology had grown up around Hawksmoor and why people were so fascinated and intrigued by him.
Because he didn't really play by the rules of the time. All of his buildings are just a bit quirky. You know, if you look at the elevations of the towers, they don't conform to the classical rules of the time. As you move up the tower, there's always something different going on. And I think people are intrigued by that. Was he just playing? What was in his mind? And the way that he played to light and shadow is often picked up by people, and you see that very much in the way that the tower has been constructed here. And we have our own kind of mysterious feature, which is our pyramid, which has been suggested, I think Ian Sinclair suggested it was in the Fu Manchu books as the lair of Fu Manchu. His lair was underneath the pyramid. I'm not quite sure whether that's correct, actually. I think that might just not be quite right. But people don't know why it's there. What's it doing in our churchyard? So that's really created our St Anne's mystery around Hawksmoor. I think possibly the more prosaic truth is that there are two flat towers here on the east end of the church, and we have at least one Hawksmoor drawing that has a pyramid in the drawing. So I suspect what happened is that they were planning to have two pyramids mounted on the church, and they either ran out of money or the stonemasons who made it didn't make it to quite the right dimension. It's possible. Or is it one of those stories like today when the builders just go off site to another job that's more lucrative? Who knows? But that's all part of the fun, all part of the mystery of our pyramid, which we recently had cleaned, by the way. It hadn't been cleaned. Oh, I don't know whether it had ever been cleaned, but we had a group of students from the Stratford-based Building Crafts College who came specifically to clean the pyramid, which we think is great. Although I did have somebody write to me and say, "What have you done to my pyramid? I really liked it when it was full of moss and lichen, and what you could ruin the character." So you can't please everybody with these things, but you try.
And it's empty. It's solid stone.
It's solid stone. There are holes underneath it. There are foxholes. Whether they lead down to some incredible cavern underneath, who knows? So as to the future use of this building, we talked a bit already about community usage, and we have a lot of ideas for activities to bring people together here. We're looking at community feasts. We're looking at some activities that address loneliness and well-being and mental health issues in the area. We have a lot of ideas in that direction. But we also want this to be an arts centre. So music, performance arts, drama, all things that we're looking at. This is already used in that way. So the Dockland Sinfonia Orchestra have been playing here for 20 odd years. It's sort of the house band, if you like, at St Anne's, is Dockland Sinfonia. We also work with the late Starters Orchestra. But we want to be much more diverse, I guess, in genres of music that we bring to St Anne's. We want to make more of our organ. So our fabulous organ, which was beautifully restored 20 odd years ago, at vast expense, but is really underutilised. We have a number of keen amateurs who come in and play it, but it's not really used in the way that some other churches have used their organ in comparison to the quality of the instrument. So that organ was the first prize winner in the Great Exhibition of 1851 at Crystal Palace, and somehow St Anne's managed to raise the money to purchase it straight out of the exhibition. So it's an incredible heritage story, as well as being a wonderful instrument to play. I don't personally play it, but those who come in and play it tell me it's really the business, so we want to make more of that. Choirs, just in the next couple of months, we've got 2 different choirs playing here, including a choir made up of architects who sing. Opera is something I would like to explore. And of course, we have a huge British Bangladeshi audience to play to here in Limehouse. Some 33% of the population of Limehouse are British Bangladeshi. And actually the Grand Union Orchestra have 4 of their members who play Bangladeshi instruments. So I'm very keen on having a small ensemble of those guys here to play next year. So let's just give you a bit of a flavour of kind of where we're going with arts.
Wow, what an incredible experience that was. Inside that glorious, glorious church. There is an event on the 20th of February. If you're watching this video before then, you can attend. I'm sure there's tickets and a link. And find out more about St Anne's. There'll be links to the Friends of the Church Care for St Anne's, the church itself. And why don't you just come down and have a visit? It's such an amazing building. We're so lucky to have these Hawksmoor gems studied throughout the landscape of London. I have to go and visit more of them now. Yes. Where should I go now? St George in the East. Not a walk, but a magical, magical, magical experience into the architecture of London, its mysteries and its stories and its people. So as I always like to say, I look forward to seeing the next walk, wherever that may be.